Hello, everybody, and you're all very welcome to today's very special ILT session. It's on the Cybersecurity Bootcamp for Women. My name is Paul Dwyer, and I'm just going to take a few moments, give people a moment or two to log in. I have also support from Anik today, who's on the line, and Anik will join us towards the end of the call, and she may be admitting people into the room as we speak as well, because I know there's a few latecomers. So, look, my name is Paul Dwyer. I lead the ICTTF and on our mission to share knowledge and to create a network of cyber good guys, essentially. And I also have a commercial role where I'm the CEO of an organization known as Cyber Risk International. And let me begin with some of our context setting slides today as we go on. So the first thing I want to remind us is, what I've done is I've picked some of the more salient points from some of the slide decks that you've gone through already and some of the video tutorials, the case books and so on that you've already gone through. So I wanted to pick out some of the more salient points that we can focus on, and what might be important to you in your career and in your aspirations to become a cyber leader yourself. So the first thing is I tend to put things in context is that we live in two worlds and we have no choice but to live in those two worlds. We live in the real physical world, and there's laws, there's social norms, there's essentially a society that's developed over hundreds and thousands of years and so on. And we have no choice but to also coexist within the cyber world. And that cyber world is a completely different place. The laws of attribution, the laws of risk management, the laws of everything are just different in that context. And we talked a lot about that through the various modules. And of course, we summarized into our threat actor groups, our bad actors, who have many different motivations. And I often think of it in the context of an infographic like this, where you essentially are looking at a Venn diagram where there's all of these things overlap. And this isn't all of the cyber threat actor groups, and this isn't all their motivations. These are just the main ones. So you can see there we've got everything from cyber criminals who want to profit, they want to make money. We have nation states that may do it for economic advantage or geopolitical reasons. We may have hacktivists who are doing it for ideological reasons, and indeed even the terrorist groups that may do it for propaganda or to groom and coerce people online may also do it for ideological reasons as well. Then, of course, what often makes the media are those that do it for thrill seekers, often referred to as script kiddies, that are just doing it for the fun, for the kudos, for the recognition of what they're able to do. And that also lends itself into that whole concept of two worlds, the cyber world and the real physical world, because these people in the real physical world tend to be non-entities, maybe quiet, subdued kind of characters and people, but they have a completely different persona. They're the leader of the pack online. They're getting recognition, they're getting kudos, they're getting praise online, and they develop a whole different persona online as a consequence. And of course, then we also have cyber insiders who generally come in a number of different flavors. One flavor is you've got essentially what we often refer to as fat fingers, the incompetent people that just make mistakes and do the wrong thing because they didn't follow training or weren't given appropriate training. You have the discontented who are on the inside and can carry a much larger impact because they're on the inside of the tent, so to speak, than those on the outside. And if they're discontent, then they have the opportunity and the ability to cause you much greater harm from within on the inside. And then you have the insiders who are being coerced. They may be themselves be the victim of something like a romance scam or sextortion, or in some way being coerced into doing something from inside. So it's a very important group, and of course we cover that off in some of the modules as well. Now let me just talk quickly about the elephant in the room, and that elephant in the room is of course COVID itself. And the fact is that we're dealing with that in our everyday scenario, and that has become our new normal in many ways. And that has impacted on cyber risk in a huge and significant way. So let me summarize this quite quickly in relation to some of the impacts of COVID-19. It's obviously caused chaos in the global economy. It has disrupted supply chains. It has literally transformed society, how we all interrelate with each other, how we interconnect with each other, how we work together, how we communicate. Everything is completely different now because of COVID. And that, of course, has that impact on the cyber and digital elements of how we operate our own lives. Now, one of the things that a lot of people may even say is a positive out of this is the fact that it has transformed business models. Digital transformation has accelerated to a huge degree. So that's something that a lot of people have seen as a positive about it, but that in itself brings along what we call a change in inherent cyber risk. An inherent cyber risk is the risk level your business has minus the impact of any controls. So it's based on, if you like, the cyber DNA of your business. How many staff do you have? How many countries do you operate from? What countries are they? What kind of systems do you use? How much personally identifiable information do you hold? How much of your revenue is taken online? How many business partners do you have? All of those kind of things make up the DNA of our business model, the cyber-related DNA, and all of those things carry a level or a data point of risk associated with them. And when you combine all those, that unique profile, that's your inherent cyber risk level. And that's what you need to be treating from a cyber risk point of view. You want to treat the uniqueness, the context of your business, what's important to your business, and that has all changed for everybody in relation to COVID. Because if you think of how many people are now working from home, how many people now have given suppliers or other business partners access to systems they didn't have pre-COVID, all of these things have had an impact on our inherent cyber risk level. And it has, of course, increased our reliance on the digital economy itself. Because even from a consumer point of view, we're reliant on our residential internet gateway, not just to work from home, but to order food, to communicate with our friends and family. So we've had a much, much deeper and increased reliance on the internet and the digital economy itself. If we go a little bit deeper on this, we've talked about the reliance on the internet, but there's been a huge increase in cyber threat activity across the board of all the different kinds of cyber threat actors we're talking about. So we're talking about, let me focus in on one particular group, cyber criminals themselves. And those OCG groups or organized criminal groups are opportunistic. They're entrepreneurial by nature. And they've seen COVID as an opportunity to have quick wins, low-hanging fruit, vulnerable people working from home, people that are susceptible to scams, smishing, that's SMS, phishing text messages being sent out, trying to get people to click on things for false information about COVID or their vaccine dates or the results of a test, all those kind of things. And so the criminals have seen this discombobulation as an opportunity to increase their activity. And there's a huge amount of that. But then there's also the more strategic OCG groups, the more strategic cyber threat actors and bad actors that are playing the long game. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well, and about the massive impact that we're likely to have in the next 6, 9, 12 months within certain sectors. So acceleration has been a result of COVID. Years have become months. And that mightn't feel like that when you're at home binge watching Netflix. But the reality is, when it comes to business, business transformation, business models, all of those things have had to happen really fast because people are trying to keep the ship afloat. People are trying to keep businesses going. They're trying to keep jobs retained. And as a consequence, they have made lots of decisions with short-term goals, but minus that reality of the longer-term imperatives. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is that they've had to make decisions under fire to keep a business going, and probably skipped a lot of the normal assurances and controls we put in place. So the new rules are, there are no rules. Essentially, a lot of organizations are just forced not to follow policy, not to follow normal procedures, because they just wanted to get things going. And now, well over a year on, that has had a consequence, because the risk that's been picked up with longer term threat actors playing and working their way in through systems and everything else like that. So it's so important for business to take stock of this, to take a fresh look at their cyber risk frameworks, to assess their situation, to develop a roadmap to close off those risks that have come from changing their business model and the change in their inherent risk. So there's an increased pressure on everybody, the supply chain, the digital architecture, what we're asking people and systems to do. And unfortunately, to keep a lot of those systems going, what a lot of organizations did as well was they took all their cybersecurity people and the people that normally work on security, and they got them working on IT projects. Now, you can imagine the consequences that are going to be paid for that, because it meant they let their guard down. Now, arguably, they had no choice. They're trying to keep the businesses going. But this is the reality, guys, of COVID's impact in relation to cyber and cyber risk. And of course, there's a psychological impact on human beings themselves. We've talked about this in relation to the discombobulation, people working from home, people being distracted, maybe in a shared working environment, maybe children, maybe just not having that mindset or that game face being on, that they're in work, that persona that comes in where they have the support and trust of their colleagues around them that they can check things quickly with, or they're just that feeling of atmosphere that they're in work mode, and they're more vulnerable when they're working from home. And we often refer to this as the C-19 cyberstorm or the COVID-19 cyberstorm, because when you put all of these things together, you factor in all of these things again, right in the middle of that, COVID has caused this storm, that increased reliance on the digital infrastructure, the cyber threat actors, the economic impact of all of this, geopolitics, and of course the privacy concerns, because a lot of us have had to make compromises around privacy in relation to data being held and transferred and so on, especially around healthcare. So look, COVID-19, essentially, if we're to look at it almost from a quote unquote positive aspect, has been the most effective digital transformation officer in the world, because it has forced people to change their business models. And there may be a lot of good in that, guys. There may be a lot of positives out of that. Maybe there's been a lot of return on investment. Maybe you're delivering better services faster, cheaper, and so on to clients and all of that good stuff. But the reality is those changes bring with them risk, and risk for your organization is something that they need to deal with. We often refer to something like COVID as a black swan event. That is to say, an unprecedented event that now becomes quite the norm. And I think that that's reflective in the nature of people understanding things now, everything from crisis communication to incident handling to cyber resilience, the legal aspects of it, being able to set up remote working, all those kind of things are all the new norm for people. And speaking of the new normal isn't down the road, guys. There is no going back to the way we exactly were before. We're going to end up in a kind of different hybrid state, I imagine. But the new normal is today. So it's not about waiting for a week or a month or 3 months and say, oh, well, I'll update the policies then, or I'll update our cyber strategy then when all this COVID thing is over. No. The new normal is today. Your policies, your procedures, your frameworks, your risk assessments, everything needs to be updated straight away, because it is today is the new normal, and tomorrow's another new normal. So this is now BAU. This is business as usual, dealing with the impact of these things as it goes on. But when we look in the media and we look at all of the warnings from Europol, local law enforcement like in Garda Síochána here in Ireland, national cybersecurity centres, even the World Health Organization along with Interpol and Europol and so on, has warned about this massive increase in cyber threat activity. Some are saying 700-800% increase in cyber threat activity. So that's something every business needs to start dealing with and being able to work with. We look at some of the leadership that's coming our way. So for example, in the financial sector, even just pre-COVID, we had Christine Lagarde calling this out. So even if we park the COVID aspect of cyber risk for one moment and we look at the impact and the threat of cyber threat actors to something like the financial sector. This is the president of the European Central Bank saying that effectively a significant attack on the financial sector may have caused a liquidity crisis. So that's very powerful words. So that's a powerful warning. And that comes after things like, the SWIFT hack and the bank in Bangladesh, when the G7, that's the group of 7 countries around the world, saw it as so important that they released what they call the G7 Cyber Fundamentals, something we cover off as well in the CICERO course. Because this is something that we can see that we are all interconnected and interdependent, and the financial sector is a great example of that. What happens to small entities within the financial sector can have a knock-on effect, and of course in the large entities may have a profound effect, not just across a nation state but across the global aspect of the financial sector as well. So is it someone else's responsibility, or is it your responsibility to help and to take part in this? What I always talk about is that we have a community responsibility to deal with cyber risks and cyber threats. So if we think of it in relation, maybe use the analogy of something like an unattended bag at an airport, back in the days when we used to use airports. But if you saw an unattended bag, you instinctively take responsibility and it would cause you concern. You may raise an alarm, put your hand up, say, hey, this isn't safe. What's this about? Now, that's a shared community responsibility that we're all looking out for each other in this interconnected, interdependent world. And we have to do the same when it comes to cyber threats and cyber risks, because we are all dependent on our supply chains, our business value chains, the services that are provided by these things. We can't just leave it to our bank to make sure that our accounts are secure. We also need to make sure that the device we're using to connect to a bank or online bank account is secure, it has updates, and it has cyber hygiene. So there's other analogies and comparisons we could use in relation to even things like, COVID. Washing your hands, face masks is the equivalent of making sure you have all your patching on your systems, you've got endpoint protection, and you've got the basics of cyber hygiene in place to make it harder for the bad guys, the virus, the evil to spread, and for them to be able to carry out their nefarious objectives. Um, but leadership is so important in this. It can't be the tail wagging the dog. We need leadership to get engaged. We need business leaders of all levels, from the boardroom level down, to get involved, to get skilled up, to understand what this is. This isn't about IT departments. This isn't about the pushing all the responsibilities down to an IT department. This is a business issue. The data, the lifeblood of your business that flows through your business. It's your responsibility to protect that, even from a regulatory and a legal perspective as well. And we've talked a lot about that during the courseware as well. So when we look at the leadership, it's about setting policy, which essentially becomes the culture of an organization. So when we look at policy or culture within an organization, if the behaviors are driven by policy, those policies should be signed off and put together by the leadership as to what is appropriate, what's not appropriate. And we have to inject a level of ethics and morality into that, especially when we're dealing with artificial intelligence, machine learning, handling data that it is very sensitive at times, and we have to go beyond the minimum baseline of just compliance training and just being able to tick boxes and say, yeah, we've done the minimum. Because what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to empower businesses. We want businesses to be able to digitally transform, to be able to innovate, to be able to take on blockchain, machine learning, quantum computing, whatever it happens to be for your business model that you need. But you need to bake in cyber risk. You need to bake in cyber risk management as you go through that piece as well. And it's all about trust. We mentioned the financial sector there. The whole financial sector around the world globally is based on one thing: trust, that a piece of paper is actually worth something at the end of the day. So loyalty is the cousin of trust, and this is all about building loyalty with customers and trusting your systems, especially digitally. So never before has it been so important to get cyber risk right when you're doing this. So we've got these converging worlds. We have businesses transform from the physical world of maybe a retail bricks and mortar store onto a virtual platform and being able to sell online. We have banks being able to transform all their services, and it goes right across every sector. So what we need now is we need to get business protection officers. That is to say, people within businesses that understand the business, understand how it works. You may work in procurement, you may work on legal, you may work in other aspects of the business, but you understand the business. But what you need to be able to do is also augment your existing skills and experience by understanding the cyber elements of that, and being able to then take that to the next level and be able to support your business and make it successful as it aligns a strategy. But there is a cyber skills shortage, guys. I mean, I talked in a lot of briefings recently about the 1 million euros CISO jobs. If we look at this is from the internet, where we see that salaries of 3.89 million being paid for a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer. We have salaries way over 2 million regularly now being offered for CISOs in some of the top banks and global companies around the world. And why is that? Well, that's because there's a skills crisis. There's a skills gap. There's over 4 million open cybersecurity jobs around the world, and there's no shortage of these stories. They're out there. The surveys, everything else. There's a bidding war to get people that understand business, can communicate, their business leaders, and they understand risk at the end of the day. And there's also the case to have non-exec directors or cybernets. So depending on where you are in your career stage, the maturity level, your experience, you may want to become a cyber non-exec director, because there's a huge demand for those at the moment as well. So let me just drill down a little bit, guys, in relation to the term I mentioned, CISO. Now, a CISO means many things to many people. So let me just cut straight to it for the purposes of time that we have on our ILT session today, because I do want to give time that we can interact and we can have some questions and answers as well towards the end. A CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, is generally a board level, or somebody can report into the board and influence the board, and it's a Chief Information Security Officer. So that's C level. Now, there isn't anything prescriptive that says it's only one kind. So what you find as you go around the world, a lot of people will use that term, perhaps dare I say, incorrectly. They may be an IT manager that has decided to call themselves a CISO and end up with that responsibility. But when we look at the role of a CISO, we look at them, they're dealing with security operations, risk management, identity management, legal and HR, compliance audits, security architecture, project delivery, business enablement, and budgets. Is that someone whose skill set is IT, just IT? And in many cases, that's what CISOs are. Most of those skill sets there, I would suggest, are about being business leaders, project management, business enablement, all of those kind of things. So what we see is this, and then the reason, for example, that we didn't call the CISO course the Certified CISO course was because we want to draw that focus on the fact that this is about managing risk. It's about understanding risk management. It's about understanding business, and it's about being a business enabler. And so often what you'll find in the real world is that a CISO reports to a certified cyber risk officer, or indeed even vice versa. It may be in certain operations that they have a CISO that recognizes they don't have all of those skills. So they build a CISO function. And that CISO function or CISO office may have 3 or 4 or 5 people in there. And one of those would be a certified cyber risk officer and will handle off those elements and be able to report up to the board. But let's look at this infographic where we drill down on what a world-class CISO would look like, or a world-class even, let's even think of this as a certified cyber risk officer, because really what we're talking about here, if we look over on the left, there's 4 different levels of CISOs generally accepted within the industry. We've got a level 1 to level 4. A level 1, most CISOs in the world would fall into that category. But a level 4 is somebody that is strong around all of the sort of business elements that builds up the business enablement elements, the team leadership, the change orientation, the influence and collaboration, all those real soft business skills and hard business skills that are in there as well, and natural skills for some people, innate skills that they have as communicators, perhaps. Because one of the things is you may be a fantastic practitioner of cybersecurity and have a brilliant network security architect, but you mightn't be able to communicate at a board level. You mightn't be able to sell your ideas, and be able to influence the business and be able to help with change orientation and so on, and be results orientated, but you may be brilliant at another discipline. So this is why it's so important to get the CISO function and the CCRO function correct within an organization. So we'll move on from there. And if we look at, for example, how we're attracting talent, I've mentioned that there's over 4 million open cybersecurity jobs. So it would lend itself to the fact that we have to do something about this. And I believe that, the best way to do this is that we look at ourselves individually and say, well, how can I transform to this world? If we're not able to just hire these people in, the business itself is transforming. It's digitally transforming. It has no choice if it's going to survive. And we too, as people within businesses who want to develop our own careers, need to look at how we can augment and how we can develop and we can respond to change. And that is about not ignoring the world of cyber and embracing it and being able to enter into that industry. So the way we talk about this is we talk about the fact that the answer lies within. It's not about getting in, the fancy pants consultants and all of these kind of game and those pieces, because at the end of the day, those consultancies engage with your people on the inside of that business, the people that know your business best. So is it not smarter to train your people within that organization, to empower them, to empower your business so that it can innovate and it can be successful, and that they can work with aligning the business strategy with the cyber strategy? That's the clever thinking. That's the best way of doing that. And that's why we put together, for example, the Certified Cyber Risk Officer course. And I just want to talk holistically, very quickly, fly over the 8 modules so you can get a grounding of what's involved in somebody managing cyber risk holistically within the organization itself. So, of course, you guys will be familiar now at this stage with understanding the cyber risk landscape, cyber strategy requirements, but then we get into things like cyber risk quantification, meaningful metrics, being able to translate the risk levels in relation to cyber, the people, the processes, the technology, and being able to empower the business so they can understand that in a meaningful way. And how's that? So in other words, say, for example, your business wants to run out online banking, and you're able to go into them onto a board level or to your colleagues at a business leadership level and say, hey guys, we're carrying these risks in relation to that objective of running out online banking next week, as opposed to going in and saying, we've scanned the network and we found 5,000 vulnerabilities or 50,000 vulnerabilities, which is meaningless to the business, to most people in business. So it's being able to relate it and communicate it and translate it back to the business themselves, and being able to influence cyber leadership and culture. As I say, there's no point in the tail trying to wag the dog, guys. This is about being able to set policies, set tone, set culture, so that everybody feels empowered. If you have 5,000 people working in your company, or 50 people, or 5 people working in your company, that's 5 people that can be part of the culture that protects your business and helps your business be successful, as opposed to 5, 50, 500, 5,000 weak links. vulnerable people that are afraid to raise their hand and say something's wrong or it doesn't feel right, when they see the equivalent of an unattended bag within the organization. We need to take lessons from sectors like the aviation sector, where safety is everybody's responsibility, from the people checking in your bag to the pilot, to everybody. Safety, if they see something wrong, everybody has the right to put their hand up and say, hey, we got to do something about this. And cyber risk and the law. This is an absolute quagmire. It's a challenge, this whole area of regulations. It's growing all the time. Hundreds and hundreds of different privacy laws around the world, not just GDPR. We don't get off that easy, guys. We've lots of regulations. What you're operating and doing within one nation state may be illegal in another nation state. So as you digitize your business and you go online, you go for global markets, you might find what you're doing is illegal in certain parts of the world. So it's about aligning and being able to prove you're aligned with what is appropriate in different countries. And then we've got cyber resilience and incident management. It's inevitable that there will be breaches of all different kinds of levels. It's inevitable there may be data leaks. So things will go wrong, and it's how to be resilient, and it's how to handle those incidents. So it's very important to understand all the stages from a business point of view. Again, this isn't something where you just leave it to the IT people and leave it to the IT guys. This is a business issue. Your business being resilient, your business being dependent on people, processes, technology, supply chain, business value chain, all of those things are about cyber resilience and about incident management. And of course, we have third-party cyber risk and remote workers now. That whole area is an art form unto itself about how do you establish trust, assurances, and controls with all of the different kinds of third parties you're dealing with, including your own people when they're working from home. What's the kind of baseline? What's the kind of approach that you take in order that, from a regulatory and legal perspective, that you've done the right thing in relation to supporting them to be able to support your business as well? And then being able to put it all together, to be able to have a strategy, an appropriate cyber strategy that's aligned with the business strategy. And that's what the business wants, and be able to communicate and make sure and enable the board and empower the board to make the decisions they need to make sure that the appropriate budgets and resources are put into cyber risk management, to cyber security, privacy, and so on, and be able to support the mission.
And if I was to say to any other of my board directors or any other board directors who may listen to this, is that it should be the #1 course for all board directors as part of your professional development pathway.
I guess there were so many different aspects of it actually that I was actually genuinely surprised as to how wide the topic was. Also very interesting. Obviously it touched areas around the outsourcing, around cyber strategy. To be honest, all these areas that we've discussed at a board level, but actually now I actually was armed and dangerous in the board meeting. So I was asking probably a lot more questions than they appreciated.
I suppose I've been in adult education for 20 years now, upskilling, doing various levels of courses, doing, I've done degrees, diplomas, kind of other, maybe not non-professional qualified courses, but I have been doing in adult education for 20 years. And this is by far and away the best course I've ever done.
Having completed a master's in cybersecurity in the last couple of years, I built up a lot of theoretical knowledge, and this course was really to fill in some of the practical cyber risk management gaps that I felt I had in my knowledge. The course was really excellent, I have to say, very practical, very relevant, very topical. With great examples, real life examples of issues that are happening today in every entity around the world. So yeah, it was a really useful course, and really thrilled that I did it actually. Well, as I said, I've completed a cybersecurity master's, but a lot of that is theoretical, a lot of discussion points, but this course is very practical. It's really how you can implement a cyber risk management framework in your organization today. So, anyone working in that area, I would suggest, they should be looking to this course because it will help them in their day-to-day job.
So guys, that was just a little bit of feedback from some of the people that have gone through the CISO course. But look, what we want to talk about is the role of you becoming potentially a certified cyber risk officer. So congratulations on doing the cybersecurity bootcamp for women. That's given you a taster, that's given you an introduction, and it's given you a level of knowledge, hopefully, that you will understand maybe the direction you want to take. When we look at this is about establishing trust, and that's the if you like, the sister of security. From the point of view of being able to be secure, you need to have trust. Trust is something that is a human emotion. It's different for different people. And if people are to trust you face to face or trust you online in the digital world, that's about having that level of security that people feel safe, they feel confident that you have those kind of controls in place, and that your organization is someone that takes their cybersecurity and the risk management of the data and so on in an appropriate level. And trust is something that makes us vulnerable. So, it's by handing over information, by trusting people, whether it's online or face to face, that makes a person vulnerable. And that's why they want the confidence, and they want to know that their data and the processes and the systems that are going to protect that is something that they can rely on and be confident in. So trust is the CCO core mission. So what I want to be able to introduce you to is that flavor of the world of cybersecurity and cyber risk management. And it may be that you want to go down one silo. It may be that you want to take it on holistically and be a CCO. It may be that you want to get involved in things like NIST cybersecurity frameworks or other areas or whatever. But hopefully this journey that you've been on over the last month has been worthwhile for you, that you feel that you've learned something and maybe got a taste for what you are interested in. And to help you on your journey to become a cyber leader, we're going to do something very special today for everybody that's on the course and has completed that course. And because this is our inaugural course for as a cybersecurity bootcamp for women, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a €1,000 voucher towards your CCO course, if that's something that you choose you want to do. We're going to give you a voucher. So for the first 10 essentially students that have gone through the course and they've got certified and they want to do that, we're going to be able to offer you that. But on top of that, we're also going to be able to, for those who are employed in Ireland, you may be eligible for a further grant from our partners in ICT SkillNet. So we can actually bring the cost of that course right down to €495 for those eligible for that grant. So look, I don't want this to turn into a sales pitch in any way, but I just want to show you that we're doing everything we can to enable people and lower the barrier as much as possible to get you involved and get you skilled up so that you can get up to that level as quickly as possible. So I'll leave that at that point, but if you have any questions on that, you can just email support@icttf.org. That's support@icttf.org, and the team will be happy to take care of you with that. So look, at this point, I'd like to introduce you to Anik O'Brien. And Anik was a student on the CCO course. Hi, Anik, how are you?
Hi, Paul. Can I be heard well? Yes?
Absolutely, clear as a bell. Clear as a bell. A good Irish accent from wherever you are.
Thank you very much. I'm in France, but I do my best to keep my Irish accent.
Excellent. Flying the flag. So look, guys, I'm going to hand over to Anik, and if there's any questions that come through in the Q&A, Anik, who's a CCO, will just wants to share some thoughts in relation to how she found the course, her own experience on it, and maybe answer some of your questions herself as well, as somebody that has had a significant career and success in the world of cyber and law and so on. And I will shut up for a few minutes, which is a challenge for myself, and I'll let Anik talk. Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much, Paul, and thank you very much for having me here today. And I'm really proud and I feel so honored to be able to speak to all the ladies that are on the call today, because I think that it can be difficult sometimes to break into this cyber world and in terms of work. And this course is the course that for me opened all the doors. For me, this qualification helped, as I said, open doors, because what the certification did for me was it allowed board and C-suite members to understand my skills. My background, my name is Anik O'Brien. I'm a lawyer. I work primarily in compliance, so things like compliance with GDPR, compliance with privacy laws. And I was seen very much as the privacy person, the personal data part of information security. Doing this certification and showing those companies that I have this capacity and the qualification allowed me, of course, to be able to demonstrate my skills to them. It meant that I was talking in the terms that they understood. And we're talking about the business value chain. This is what Paul speaks about in the course. So I was able to relate what I knew in work and what I'd learned in the course into terms they understood in relation to risk, meaningful metrics, and of course, bringing it back again to the business value chain. It helps with the understanding of information security, and it allows you to convey your message in meaningful terms. what it did for me was it opened doors to enable me to move into with new clients, because I work for myself. So it enabled me to get a lot of new clients. It opened doors that wouldn't have been open to a typical lawyer in the past. I was now a CCRO, and that opened a lot of doors. But what it did, most importantly for me, was it kept those doors open. So I was no longer a person who came in and did a project, but I became a meaningful partner for many businesses, because I wasn't just there for personal data. I was there for cyber risk. And cyber risk is one of the biggest issues that all of the boards and C-suites are interested in today. Again, my name is Anika O'Brien. I'm really happy to take any questions from anybody on this topic now today. Working as a woman in the cyber world, the CCRO course. Also connect with me on LinkedIn and feel free to ask me any questions. I'm happy to be here. I feel like myself as an ambassador of this, because I'm really respectful and thankful to Paul for launching this initiative of Bootcamp for Women, because it can be hard to break in. But what's brilliant is when you go into these and you speak to the boards and the C-suite, and they think that cyber is, you know, the guy's domain and you need a degree in information security or a degree in IT to do it. You walk in with this qualification saying, I'm a CCRO. Your risk is cyber risk. I'm a qualified cyber risk officer. You're in. It opens the door. So that's my experience, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Anik. While the questions are coming in, can I ask anybody who has a camera to turn it on? Because I'd like to get a screenshot, if we can, maybe of our first class on the Cyber Bootcamp, and we'll see if we've got any pictures there that we can maybe share later. Thanks, Ella. There's Natalia, just got her vaccine, and I have to thank Natalia for her energy behind the Cybersecurity Bootcamp for women.
Thanks, Paul.
No problem.
So I do see a question is coming in from Anna. Thank you, Anna, for this question. Organizations often separate privacy and cyber. And so interesting that I have a privacy background and I'm taking the course. Is that background an advantage to moving to the next level? I would say both yes and no. For me, when I do my work, I always saw privacy as part of information security. But you are so correct, Anna, that businesses tend to separate them, and they put the lawyer in a particular pocket who has to do the standards and policies, and then they put their IT person in an InfoSec bracket, and they say, you've got to protect us on a technology level, but there's nobody in the middle doing the cyber risk. And this is what has allowed me to move over into the cyber risk. You don't need a privacy background to do this course, but you can come from any background. And what's great about the Jargon Buster is you'll never be left behind. You'll always be kept up to date and you'll understand all of the terms.
Fantastic. Any further questions? We see that there's, we know a lot of people are going to go through the recording of this afterwards. So there's a small number online anywhere with cameras, which is good, because at least we've got something. And it's something we would ask for your support as well, is to spread the word on this, guys, as well. On LinkedIn, on other social media, invite for you know, your cyber sisters, so to speak, from onto future courses, because this is the only way we're going to be successful, is to get people to come onto these courses. As you know, they're free, and to come onto those boot camps and get as many on, because it is a shameful statistic, you know, that and many stats are even worse than the one we have up on the website. About 20% of the sector is made up of women. Many are more closer to 10% when they run the surveys, and then when you get into ethnic backgrounds, it's even more shameful. So I think we need lots of diversity within the cybersecurity sector itself, and certainly we need the skills of women in there to help with. And look, without getting too deep into it, I can tell you that there's definitely, from the art of managing so many multiple disciplines of cyber risk, I can see a difference in the ability of within the assignments and results I'm getting from women than I can from the male counterparts who are struggling with certain aspects of the assignments. But that whole holistic view of multitasking, and it's not a scientific view that I have, but all I can say is that certainly women seem to be a lot stronger on these courses than their male counterparts, and maybe it is just the kind of detail that's required, the kind of ability to be able to deal with all of those parts and project management. But these days, afraid to say too much in case I get accused of being sexist in some way, but that's what it appears. And I mean, it's great to see so many people just striving and getting ahead and already transforming, getting new jobs and so on as a result of it as well. But is there any further questions, or will
there are actually?
Yeah.
I see somebody working in IAM, Identity Access Management Governance, is asking about should they have a technical background, and actually no. And this is one of the biggest misconceptions, and Paul will agree with me here, that you need to be a technical person to understand cyber risk and to manage and mitigate risk. No, you don't. Cyber is 80% people, 20% technology. And the three things that we're thinking of are people, process, technology. And technology is such a small part of that. Where our issues happen are in the people and in the process. And this is what we can do. As women, we have all that experience in writing policies and procedures, in working in access management, in all of that people stuff. I'm sure there are people here from HR, people working in marketing, people who work in customer support, people who are people. And that is what we're going to, that is how we're going to mitigate and manage cyber risk, not with just adding more and more and more technology to the problem.
Yeah, I mean, and that was one of the key objectives in designing the syllabus of the course as well, was, and I was learning Spanish at the time when I was putting the course together, so I realized that vocabulary was so important, that what we didn't want was people being intimidated by the use of technical language and acronyms. And that's hence where the jargon buster section came from as well, that people can actually learn the language as they go through and not be intimidated and be confident enough to push back at these technologists who are trying to intimidate people through the use of just over hyperbolic technical language and acronyms, because they're the ones that feel insecure. They don't understand maybe what compliance is, what regulations mean, everything else like that. So they will just try and blind people with a lot of technical terms. So we go to great pains and great state to within the courses to make sure that we explain every single technical term, because yes, we have to use them from time to time, but we explain what they are, and we explain what they are in business terms. So our vision was that whoever the CEO is, and they could be the biggest Luddite in the world, but they will be able to understand whatever you're talking about at the end of the day. So that was something that we feel we've achieved very well through the courses.
And one question that's come in here is about, does the course obtain respect and acceptance from technical people? My personal experience is that yes. Friends of mine who are CISOs, who have very, very technical backgrounds, have a lot of respect for this course and for the knowledge that I have in this course. So that would be my personal experience that I've had. Another question that's come in is, do I feel that I'm qualified to be a head of cybersecurity? Yes, I do. But I feel very confident in my own abilities. But what I would say is, I'll go back to what I said earlier, and the World Trade Organization published a report about cyber and how it's 80% people and 20% technology. And so I feel 100% competent on the people part. So I'm at least 80% there. And as far as the technology part, there is technology in the course. We all pick up those technology bits as we go along in our working life. And good cyber hygiene is basic technology. You don't have to be a network administrator or writing code to understand that you need a secure password and you should change it every 6 months. So yes, I do feel qualified to be a CISO.
No, absolutely, and that's the thing, guys, as well, is this is business level training. There are lots of technical courses put out by vendors about firewalls and all of that kind of area around network architecture. Being following that path to being a business leader and a business enabler and a business protection officer isn't about getting down necessarily into the bits and bytes and IP addresses and port numbers. It's about understanding what the business mission is, understanding what the cyber-related risks are, and being able to protect the business on its journey to deliver its goals in its own business strategy. And you become an extremely valuable person to the organization very quickly, because you're an enabler. You're somebody that isn't going to be a roadblock and say, hey, listen, we can't do that because there's a security vulnerability here, there, or whatever. You're baking it in. You're becoming part of the processes on new systems being designed, everything else like that. You're handling that narrative of legal, regulatory, compliance, the people, the processes, all of those pieces around it as well. And you're higher up the food chain. It's as simple as that, guys. I mean, if you look at it at a pyramid and all the technical pieces are down the end, and there's not so much of a delta or gap of skills down in that area, because that technology churns all the time. There's lots of courses from vendors out about their particular offerings and so on down at the bottom end of the pyramid. But as you go up the pyramid with your career and so on with that, it's about being a business protection officer and a business enabler around cybersecurity, and you're working your way the whole way up to the top. And that's why I use that example of even a CyberNet non-exec director, which might be where you are in your career at the moment, but this is where these €1 million salaries, €2 million salaries are. They're all the way up as you work your way up the top, because it's somebody who can translate into a modern day language, which is cyber. The boards are full of men, and the boards are full of people that don't understand technology and everything else like that, and they just think it's something IT. But time has changed. The people who are the most successful businesses, most successful people in the world, are the people that are going to be able to interface and talk cyber and be able to enable businesses. So, and the great thing about the cybersecurity industry, I was saying yesterday on a podcast, is it's a meritocracy. If you can do it, you can do it. You don't need degrees, master's degrees and PhDs and all that kind of stuff to this. You just need to be able to do it. I didn't go to college, guys, right? Simple as, right? I'm self-taught from day one. When I was age 19, I went to live in Kazakhstan. I set up network systems for oil wells all around the world, and I followed my career, and I self-taught. I have a hunger for knowledge, and I love sharing that knowledge as well through things like the Cyber Risk Academy, right? So you can just find your own path, you know, and where your objective is to make money, or just if your objective is career, or your objective is to give back to the world, whatever those things are, you'll be able to do it on a path within cybersecurity.
Yeah. We have a question that's come in from somebody saying, I'm in the compliance department, and cyber risk within my firm is very much the problem of third-party IT guys. I see two issues there. I don't have direct channels to our cyber framework. Would I be able to complete the course? Absolutely. You are the exact person who should be doing this course. And I'll tell you why. The course is very practical. It's very kind of hands-on. It's you're learning the pieces. You can go and read up on the extra bits with all of the extra information and videos and links that you get. And what's great about it is when you walk away, hopefully successfully with the qualification, you then can go to your IT, whoever's managing procurement or is managing that IT relationship, and say, you know, we need to do due diligence on these third-party IT guys. We need to set up a regular meeting with these IT guys to make sure that we're all speaking the same cyber risk language, so that they don't have a breach and don't tell us about it, or we're not aware of risks that are in their businesses that we should be aware of because they affect our business. So I would say yes, you absolutely. This is exactly who the course is geared for. Next question. In your experience, do you believe that the cyber functions should sit within or outside IT? Would you mind going on mute, whoever? If you don't ask a question, please do go on mute. Paul, I'm going to ask you this. In your experience, do you believe that cyber functions should sit within or outside IT?
Outside, 100%.
And why?
100%. And why is because you can't have you can't have somebody correcting their own homework. Okay, so if you think of what the mission is of a CIO or an IT manager, is to deliver and operate IT systems for the business, and they will be under pressures of time, of budget, and maybe corners will be cut. Because that's human nature. They'll want to get things up and running. They want to get things done. And how can they be the governing body over themselves to make sure things are done in line with risk, with regulations, with laws, all of those things? And that's why the CISO or that function always sits outside of the IT function, or should always sit outside of that IT function. And depending on the size and complexity of your organization, they mightn't have a CISO function, but they may have a certified cyber risk officer that is able to sit outside that and essentially perform second line, third line due diligence across that first line of IT to make sure they are doing what the business thinks they're doing. So when you think of what policies and procedures are, they're the rules and laws of how your organization operates. So if they're in place, you want to make sure that IT are following those things and so on. Now, IT aren't going to go, oh yeah, well, we're not following the laws and the regulations of the business. And we're cutting corners, and we're doing essentially what we call shadow IT, which is IT outside of policy with their normal assurances and so on. And so absolutely you should sit outside of there. And it might be in a role like a DPO, it could be in a role like audit, it could be internal audit, somewhere where they're not dependent on their employment, their boss's good graces, their bonus, any of those things that happens in the real world. When someone's trying to get through things, I mean, there has to be sitting on its own. If you want to have good oversight, good cyber oversight, then you want to be able to have that independence of who's actually performing the duties.
Right, exactly. And if they're working in the business, their objective is to make the business work. It's not to identify, manage, and mitigate the risks, or to accept the risks. That's board and C-suite, and that's where you as a CCRO can speak to the board in their terms, and they can make those decisions about risk. So we move on with some more questions that have come in. Loads of questions coming in. Right. I hope we get to all of them. If we don't, we will be available. You can send the questions afterwards. Do you have any advice on how to get into the financial industry as a cybersecurity professional? I'm sure Paul has some ideas here. My view would be that if you feel like you're knocking on doors in the financial services sector and you're not getting any responses, fintech is a place to go, because fintech is the hybrid of where you can really excel with your cybersecurity skills, but still be in the financial arena. Paul, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great observation. And the other side is a reg tech side of things as well. So regulation, technology, bringing those things together. But having something like a CCRS or a CCRO on your profile will open the doors for you. The financial sector is sometimes waiting a year, 2 years to fill some of the roles around cyber risk and so on. It's a game changer. It's like a paradigm shift when you turn around, all of a sudden you're qualified around cyber risk, and they go, we've been waiting for you. Right? Where have you been? Because this is what they're waiting for. Now, there is plenty of work still to be done around HR departments to understand qualifications. So and let me explain what I mean by this. Let's say, for example, somebody in cybersecurity department wants to hire somebody. They have to turn around to their HR department of the large bank and say, we need to hire somebody. And the HR department says, well, what sort of qualifications do they have? And they go, I don't know, CISSP or CISM, and they'll start naming off all these things as a filter just to stop these people coming in. And that's why we need to articulate that out to business, that they understand more, that depending on that business role, it's about risk management. Now, people within, say, the chief risk officers remit and role and GRC, governance, risk and compliance, and all of those areas, they'll get this and they'll go, yeah, absolutely, what we want is a CCRO or a CCRS. Somebody maybe in the other areas may want an NCSC, but they want to know that people understand these frameworks. There's lots of IT people with IT security skills for doing all the patching and the segmentation of networks and the network architecture and all that. But if you're going into the financial service and they want somebody that actually understands NIST, actually understands G7 cybersecurity controls, understands risks, understands money laundering, understands all of these areas, that is why your CV will just pop then, because you go, actually, I have a little bit of all of this. And holistically, I understand the whole picture. And they go, wow, we have a role for you here, we have a role for you here. It's a door opener, complete door opener.
And Paul, what's the next step after CCRO or CCRS?
So what we're working on is to be able to support people's careers as they go through this piece as well, with the next level of education and support, if you like, and mentorship. And hence we have now we're offering associate memberships where you can almost become part of a club, and then we will have lots of more training material that we put out. The kind of courses we're working at the moment, for example, and you guys will be the first to hear this, is we're developing a dark web specialist course. And we will certify people as specialists on the dark web, because it's so important that people have the skills and understand what the risks are, how to navigate it, how to be able to work around on behalf of their businesses. Because a lot of businesses, banks especially, they're almost afraid of it, and they go, but we have to open up our eyes. We can't have our head in the sand. We need people that are empowered to be able to understand, well, I see something happening there. And also, there's lots of legitimate businesses, the BBC and so on. They're all on the dark web. Right? They're all on the deep web. They operate there. There's lots of legal, legitimate sites there as well. So this is an area that businesses are going to need people that can safely hold their hand and bring them on it. And that's where the dark web specialist course will come in. The other side of things, what we're doing is we're going to develop a course, which hopefully will be ready around October, November time, where it only be open to those that have done a CCRO course or an NCSE course, or hopefully both, that a lot have done, like we saw Audrey there on the video footage. And we're going to run a CISO bootcamp, and we're going to convert people into CISOs. We're going to fill in and augment that piece out, and it's going to be tough. It's going to be 1 week solid. Now, it's still being shaped, but what we're looking at the moment is a 1 week solid course, and that you've passed certain criteria, you'll be allowed in this course, and we will personally bootcamp training style get you right through that whole week to an exam level. And if you pass that exam, you will carry a CISO certification. And that obviously will open up tremendous amount of doors. There are CISO certifications out there. We've looked at those. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. We feel they're very poor. We don't feel that they fill the gap in the remit of what people need within their career level and to support their own careers. We're doing a lot specializing around the financial sector as well. We're doing a lot of work tailored at certain sectors, for example, Bermuda, Singapore, areas like that. So you're going to see a lot more specialist training coming out around that piece as well. So what you'll always see from ICTTF is that community collaborative spirit where we'll share a lot of that generic knowledge with people, but we're specializing in certain areas that we know are required. We know what's required in the real world. We know the kind of specialist skills people want and what they'll pay for. So your career is enhanced because there's not going to be too many dark web specialists out there with that qualification on their CV and can go in with confidence and say, I'm going to represent this business and interest maybe commercially onto the deep web, or maybe just protect us from it, or at least be able to know and operate how that works. So those kind of things is what we're coming. So it's very exciting, the stuff we have planned ahead. And as I say, what we're trying not to do is just what everybody else is out there. We're trying to be innovative ourselves and make sure that we specialize in those courses that will build upon that initial CCRO offering that we brought out. We're very much enabled at business level. Okay, so this is about a business level training and becoming cyber experts around business level. That's what you get from ICTTF. And we have no problem pointing people in other directions. For example, if people are interested in technical courses or those, we will point them to our partners in ICT SkillNet. If people are interested in money laundering and those kind of areas, we say, hey, talk to our friends in the International Compliance Association. They're the world's best at it. So within the network of ICTTF, you'll find that we are establishing these relationships for the good of our community as well, so that you can actually benefit from those relationships that we have as well. And we'll always guide you, and you'll always get an honest answer from us anyway. So if you ever need any guidance.
Another question that's come in.
Oh, sorry.
Go on. It's great to have somebody else asking a question.
Another voice, great, Ella.
Welcome.
Sorry, I cut across you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I'm just wondering from a slightly different perspective. So I'm trying to break into the cyber sector. I have never had a cyber role before, but I've done a number of courses kind of like this. I'm currently doing a master's in the cybersecurity of AI specifically, but I'm wondering for the course that we talked about, would it be appropriate for someone who hasn't had any hands-on experience, or would you advise trying to find a traineeship for a year, working hands-on, getting, good work experience, and then coming back to do the course? Or I suppose what would be the next best step for someone like me who is trying to break in and trying to kind of start from the ground up? What do you think would be the next best thing for me to do?
Okay, I'll take that one, Anik. Well, congratulations on the AI piece, right? Because that is so cool, right? And you're going to be like a unicorn by the time this is finished, because that's what everybody's looking for. Somebody that will understand, AI, be able to empower their business, everything else like that. I would suggest that you embrace the cyber risk officer piece as quickly as possible, because that is going to flesh out all of the issues that AI brings up. Okay, so things like morality, ethics, the security of it, all of those kind of things as well, or the business conversations that go on around AI. Nobody's really concerned about whether somebody can hack in through an unpatched server, and because the AI conversations are much more about business processes. They're much more about how will this affect things, the governance, the risk, the compliance, the regulatory piece, all of those pieces. And you will have all of that vernacular, you'll have all of that verbiage, that vocabulary, and you'll understand all of those terms that people are talking about when they're talking about AI pieces. And then you'll be able to use your skills, experience that you've gained from that course to bring those to show. But it would definitely be very complementary to what you're doing around AI. Really.
And remember as well, this is a community, and Paul always talks about it being a community. So contact the people that are on this course with you today. And if you join the CCRO course, get in contact with those people and build that network and develop it, because it's through that network that you're going to see the really interesting opportunities. And that's how you're really going to move, into the next step. And I met some great people actually on the last course.
Okay, that's great advice. Thank you both.
Thanks, Sarah.
So we have a question about BISO and how you feel that how do you see the role see the BISO role responsibilities within the cyber risk function. And maybe, Paul, you could explain to people what a BISO is, maybe as opposed to a CISO, and the difference there.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, there's lots of different terms floating around about the roles within, and that's why I sort of took a few seconds there when I was talking about the CISO. Said, hey, they call these things different things around the world, right? And one label. So, for example, in North America, a CISO is generally really a CISO. When we come over to Europe and we start moving across, people just call themselves and relabel themselves up on LinkedIn as a virtual CISO or a CISO or anything like that. But the taking the label off it, what's the role? Okay, so if who's responsible for cyber risk within the organization? In some organizations, they may say, oh, we have a CISO or we have a head of IT security. Then you have to unpick that and say, your head of IT security, do they have control over people and processes? Do they have a relationship with HR, the HR department? What about legal, what compliance, all of those areas? No. Well, then what they are is IT security. They are not a CISO. They are not a risk officer around cyber, whatever you want to call this role. They are not that. What the business needs is that function. And that function may be an office, it may be one person, or it may be a number of people to deliver on all those aspects. So, the CEO is responsible for cybersecurity and risk management. The board are accountable, and they need somebody in the business, whatever they call them, chief bottle washer, whatever they want to call them. That person, it may be somebody that they then delegate the activities and responsibilities to do that. But ultimately, the responsibility lies with the CEO on the board. There's no question about that when it comes to legal ramifications, everything else like that. And, so I think what you're going to find is, and there is often a struggle with pigeonholed titles and names within the cybersecurity industry because they are so dynamic and people just make them up as they go along and all that kind of crack. And we thought long and hard about that when we were naming this course. And we didn't want to call it a CISO course. And we didn't want to call it, IT risk management course or something like that, because that's not what it is. What we wanted was a C-level risk officer around cyber. And that's what this is. And that's what that course is about. So whether you then take that, your role will probably never be just called a CCRO within the business, because your job title is probably going to have a different name. It may be that you're the business protection officer, cyber business protection officer, or you're the head of cybersecurity, or you're the CISO, whatever it happens to be, or you might be working as part of that function. So don't get caught up too much around the title. Scratch on the surface of those and see what's underneath the role. And the role should be holistic. Because and the reason that there's the 8 modules covering such a vast range of stuff is because the role is holistic. We can't operate in silos. Bad guys don't operate in silos. They don't care that that's someone else's job over there around people's behavior, and you're just dealing with one aspect of it, which is is the network architecture secure. You need eyes right across the business, and to make sure that the business is covering the people, the processes, the technology, the business value chain, the interactions with the business, the data flows, the legal, the compliance. There's so much to this, guys. It really is, and that's why, there's such 8 deep modules there, because you need to be able to embrace it all to be effective in that role. And it might be when you, as you develop in your career, that you start off with one part of that. You might be that your passion is around the law and our policies or whatever it happens to be, or you might be somebody who goes, no, I'll be the conductor. I will conduct all of this across the business. I won't be a subject matter expert in maybe procurement or this piece or that piece, but I will be the conductor that understands enough that I can bring it all together and be the band leader, so to speak, in that. So you may be somebody who's very good at project management. You would make a brilliant CCRO, whatever you want to call the new title within an organization. You'd be brilliant at it, because this is about being a people person. The really effective CISOs I've met in the world are the ones that are great communicators. You could be a really good communicator, good sales skills, because what you're selling is yourself and your ideas and your integrity. Right? And they want to have confidence. And the reason why on the CCRO course, one of the things people, in the assignments, to say, oh, why we cut down to so many short number of words that we use? Because what you want to be able to go into a business leader is with a short memo, and that they trust you on what you're telling them, and that you have all the facts to back it up, but you're able to communicate in a really succinct, salient way with business leaders, make their job easier. You're empowering them by even doing that, helping them make the decisions, and then they get on to the next level, and they trust you. It's all about the trust and confidence in the integrity of what you're doing, that you're not going into them with acronyms and trying to impress them about what you know about CVE vulnerabilities and network architecture and all that kind of crack. They don't really care. They want to know that they can trust you, that you've got everything under control, and that you're pointing out at the right areas that they may have an issue with. You know, something like, for example, Ella talked about AI. This is obviously the future. It's the present and the future, AI, and it's what we need to be able to embrace and do it properly. And that's why when we talk about even on one of the infographics, we have morality and ethics as one of the challenges on one side of it. If you remember back to that infographic about cyber strategy, because this is a huge issue. We're going to have to get chief morality officers within organizations to understand what we're doing with technology. Are we doing it ethically? You know, are we doing these things morally with how we create algorithms, what those algorithms are doing with data and how it's being put together? And that's where and I talked with this, with it name dropping, whatever, it's Snowden up in DCU a couple of times at our events there, and I referred to him as a chief morality officer and thought that maybe Facebook should offer him a job. Based on their behavior with data and algorithms and so on. So yeah, I mean, look, this is the future. You can carve out whatever career you want. As I say, look, especially for those maybe at the early stages of their career, the world's your oyster. Cybersecurity, AI, I mean, that's just the path. Like, you know, it's the kind of place where you want to be going and pushing through and making your own roads on it, because no one has written the road in front of you. It's up to you to call it out and where your skills are going to be. But be able to talk business. If I get no other point across this ILT today, be able to speak to the business and communicate at the business level with the business. The world is full of technologists. The world is full of nerds. I used to be one. Well, maybe I still am a little, but and they will just talk and techie speak with each other and all that good stuff. But the holy grail is when you're able to communicate at a business level, and you're able to talk to the Luddites and talk to the business people and the business leaders who are brilliant in their own way and brilliant entrepreneurs, but they want to look at you and trust you that you're giving them the right advice, and then they'll make those decisions. And you're going to do all the hard work, because you're going to assess all of that stuff and come back to them, and then they'll go, okay, what's the risk, and then what are the options? That's it. Accept it, mitigate it, transfer it, simple as. And you're making, that's enabling the business, as opposed to our security is good. We think we might have a risk. It's a business. They'll just get frustrated with you. And then people look for more budgets and more this, whatever. Why? It's just a hole to throw money into it and resource and time. And they want to get on with innovating. They want to get on with sales. They want to get on with growing the business, everything else like that. But if you're someone that can keep them secure, business protection officer, you're protecting the entire business, the people, everything.
I think we might have to hold it there, because I think we're running over time and I'm sure people have places to go. Paul, parting words?
I would just say, look, guys, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Cybersecurity Bootcamp. Congratulations, you're on our inaugural one. Many thanks to Anik and Natalia for the energy behind getting the Cybersecurity Bootcamp going as well. We hope you will spread the word. We hope you will tell others about your experience on it and invite others, your cyber sisters, to come on board and become into this industry. We hope you found it really beneficial, and really hope you take up the offer that we've been able to negotiate with ICT SkillNet and so on, and take your next step on the journey of becoming a business protection officer. And I wish you the best of luck with your career, and hopefully meet you in the real world soon.